Hey guys, so I understand a lot of my topics that I push online uh, can be bite-sized and hard to understand in terms of polarity and relationships and how those things work, right? So I'm often connecting it back to hormones, minerals, and general health and wellness and psychological perspectives, lifestyles, and all of that. And it can be confusing because it's a very broad, nuanced topic. So I'm going to do my best to, in this video, describe all of that to you and to help kind of clear the air a little bit so that people can really understand things. For me in the past, I used to be very effeminate. Growing up in California, I felt this was normal. Like it's something that's just who I am. I'm unique. I didn't realize that health directly affected my personality. So it wasn't until I started cleansing my gut and changing things around metabolically that I started to change at random. And I'm like, oh, I don't like the things that I used to like. What's going on with that? And then some of the things might have been enhanced or just kind of depressed in terms of like, say, topics of like what I might be interested in terms of like, oh, I like to do more masculine activities now versus feminine activities, or it even changed like how I think in relationships, which was really big. The big time, the really big one that occurred once upon a time was when I did a 3.5 day dry fast. This was like my at least my 18th dry fast that was 3 days, that was consecutively 3 days or more. Um, this one was big because it just blew my mind that my whole beard would just turn like totally red. I'm like, what gives? And my personality changed too. It's weird. Like I, I would go into a grocery store and I'd see a woman that was attractive just by the way they walked or the way they talked to other people. And it was within a 5 second span. I didn't even think about it. I just go up there and say, hey, and I'd have no care about anyone around me. I just go right in front of her, even if she was surrounded like a bunch of guys. I'd be like, hey, I want you. It was no problem for me. Fearless, absolutely fearless. I had never been like that my whole life. I'd always think about what kind of strategy I can employ to get a girl interested. I am no longer like this. However, if I do really, really cheat on my diet, I do really bad on my health, and I'm just feeling really down and out, there is times when I get back to that to some extent. But in general, I'm in this kind of dominant sympathetic nervous system response, and it feels really, really good as a man. So what I try to explain to people is that women can be stuck in a chronic fight or flight response, which makes them very masculine, and men can be stuck in a parasympathetic nervous system response where they can end up being very much effeminate. But not all men in their parasympathetic are characteristically very effeminate, and not all women stuck in their sympathetic are entirely masculine. It's very nuanced. Every person is different. So like a woman who has PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, I always like to use this because it's like the most extreme example. Is these women develop cysts in their ovaries where they push and produce more androgens, which are male hormones, which then changes their personality to make them more masculine. So these women may end up choosing a life that seeks out more careers, more ambitions. They want to be more respected rather than loved, and cherished and protected, right? So these women are fully capable of protecting themselves, and they're good with that. They like to manage things. But each person is different. So there are all kinds of women who have PCOS, and then they say even also have estrogen dominance. And so this creates this really interesting dynamic of like the example of like what male hormones create for a woman to seek power, but then they also have the female hormones that come in to not seek it, and then to actually be to give control over to, say, a man. But then this estrogen dominance can make them overly emotional, right? So this can be characterized as you can look at an HTMA, a hair tissue male analysis test, and you might see that the woman has a ton of copper sequestered throughout the whole body, in places that may not even show on the test, but the test can maybe in some ways indicate this. And this can basically reveal in a lot of ways that she is going to end up becoming very emotional and potentially estrogen dominant. And then some women who might have a bunch of mercury or lead or cadmium or aluminum stuck in their bodies or at enzyme receptor sites, these women can end up stuck in their sympathetic fight or flight state and become therefore more masculine. There are also microbes that get involved with all of this. And these microbes can then leverage trying to get more access to estrogen. And if they're constantly consuming the estrogen to essentially turn into these greater beasts within you to get more control, it can create a hormonal imbalance. And so another thing too is like you can consume a bunch of raw milk, which is full of a bunch of bioavailable hormones. I'm not against raw milk, but like in some ways I can be for certain people because it's very hormonal. It can benefit you, but it could also give you some troubles hormonally. So, and then if the liver consumes stevia, or you consume stevia, and the steviol glycosides make contact with the enzymes in your liver, it can kind of in a lot of ways affect you and make you more estrogenic, say as a man especially. It was a big truth I had to accept. So ultimately, when it comes to hormonal health, minerals, and polarity dynamics and everything, what I'm trying to do with everyone is help you all understand that when you get to greater forms of health, you end up polarizing. It's inevitable. So, but to do this, it's actually quite hard. That's why we don't see many examples of it. I'm just this extreme experimentalist, and that's why I've gotten here. Because I do these crazy methods to like get me to these places with my health. And it's taken me to this crazy place where I become a lot more masculine and command in my life and more of a sympathetic state. And I can also roll back into my parasympathetic when I need to. I have more control now. And I believe this is because I moved heavy metals out of my system. And so I have now more control over that nervous system. So a truer polarity is a man being able to stay in the sympathetic when he needs to be, and he will happily stay there. But then in times when he needs to, he can access that parasympathetic, and he can be more relaxed, more in tune with his emotions and feelings, and to be able to connect well in a relationship, or to do anything else with, or to create things, to be artistic, right? So me making this video, I had to be relatively accessing my feminine side of my brain, which is more of that parasympathetic side, right? So that's what I'm trying to articulate fully to people, is that a lot of us are chronically stuck in one state or the other. And so they actually get the mistaken belief that women should be in charge, or men should be followers, or men should be like doing knitting classes 24/7, and women should be big lugging construction workers on a regular basis. This is something that can be achieved, but it's a hormonal issue long term. And so I'm trying to help people get to the truth, to balance their hormones and their bodies, or their bodies and then their hormones, to then it affect relationship status. Because if you end up in a relationship that's committed right now, that's based under a hybridization, where you're like doing masculine things as a woman and feminine things as a woman, and a man's doing feminine things and masculine things, and this is how your relationship exists, and only one of you heal, you can end up totally leaving one another. Like one will end up leaving the other because it's going to no longer be hormonally compatible. It's like if a woman had a copper IUD and she developed these masculine characteristics because of it, and she attracted to a guy while she had it, she could take that copper IUD out, and then inevitably within like a few weeks hormonally shift, and then it makes it so she doesn't want that guy anymore, right? So really dangerous. I'm trying to save you people. I'm trying to help you guys. You got to get on this ship. I am not wrong about this. So if you have any questions, go ahead and comment, and also subscribe to help me out to get the word out. And also stay tuned for my paid group, which will talk about these concepts and really get into the weeds of the science and like how it all works. I will help guide you guys to the answers and help you get to your health. It's like paying $30 or so for what a fancy salad costs is easy to spend for something that is going to change your life. This information is life changing. I help a lot of people this way, and I could help you. So stay tuned.